what is worship? That's the question we're going to answer this week in our part 2 of the making of a worship service at Bethany Church. I was able to sit down with, or virtually sit down with, a number of the people that make our services happen on any given weekend, and I asked them this question, and I want you to take a listen to their answer.
When we talk about worship, many people think that worship is the act of being in the sanctuary and singing, okay? And worshiping God is their act of worship. And what I'd like to say is worship is also my dedication to doing my job with excellence for Him. It's my team's dedication for showing up and being prepared and putting God first and wanting to make sure that we're serving with an authentic heart. That's our act of worship. So although many people come as the congregation and they feel that worship is their worshiping God in their act of singing, that's just one way to worship God. So showing up with a servant's heart and just wanting to deliver the best you can for Him, whatever that is, whether you're delivering meals to somebody or working a camera behind the scenes, standing on stage and leading the congregation in worship, that's all worship.
I mean, and worship is all those things. And I mentioned it last week in service. Worship is our response to God's perfect grace and love.
Right.
And so that's obviously that's a pretty general statement, but there's so much that can be involved with that. And there's so much more than Joe said than singing. That's, worship involves tithe. Worship involves repentance. Worship revolves, gratitude and acknowledgement of our King. Worship involves thankfulness for His perfect grace. It's all these things. And you can do that serving down in the nursery.
Worship, I really don't think has to do anything with the actual act of what you're doing. I think it has to do with the motivation that's in your heart and in your mind, and what the state of motivation is what's most crucial to that. I mean, worshiping can looks different for everyone. For me, it's singing. For Joe, it's editing. For Drew, it's probably playing guitar. For someone serving in kids ministry, it's that, because it's what's behind their heart. Like, okay, this is what I can do to express my gratitude, for all the good that God has done. And I mean, it talks about that in Colossians 3. So I think, what does it say? Like, Colossians 3, what does it say?
Serve the Lord with gladness.
Yep. That's the verse.
The other thing I would mention with this is that when you hear the term Christian music, right? It's like, well, what makes a C-note Christian, right? So if it's an instrumental song, and let's say it's this reflective part of a service, and it's instrumental, well, is that instrumental music Christian, or is it a Christian making music? You get that?
Yep.
So, again, it's like, it's that heart behind it. It's that talent or that time that's being put forth, that tithe.
How we use our time, our talent, and our treasure, with our attitude, with our actions, with our motives, each of those can be forms of worship. So as we consider the worship experience we have on a weekend, yes, it's the singing that we sing from our homes right now or when we're in the service. It's our different ways that we serve and minister to our community, our family. But it's also how we give. It's also how we listen to the word and study and apply it. And it's also the attitude we have as we gather as a group, as a family, as an individual. That's just something for us to think about when we prepare our hearts to prepare for a worship service. Next week, we're going to delve further into this topic of the making of a worship service. But until then, I'd encourage you to subscribe down below in the links so that you make sure you can hear about each week's episode. And remember that life is better with Jesus.